Hey, you better tell your guy. That's the last time you fucking threatens me, or else we're gonna have some fucking problems. Don't tell a motherfucker not to be threatening me no more, or else we're really gonna have some problems.
What is up, boxing besties? Welcome back to Xicana Boxing on YouTube. I'm super excited to yap about Benavidez Morrell fight weekend and covering it live. It was an amazing experience. And for all the new people, hey, my name is Lily. I am an independent boxing journalist who sometimes gets on here and yaps about whatever's going on in boxing, or like in this case, talk about a fight that I covered. And if you like that, if you like exclusive content, if you like interviews, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to subscribe to my weekly e-magazine, my weekly newsletter. Especially when I cover events live, I do like to make them look more magazine-y and kind of do a little bit more effort on them. So check them out. This one I wrote about the same thing I'm going to talk about this video. And yeah, like, subscribe to it. I don't send spam. It's literally just every Monday a newsletter. You can just read about it, skim through it, share it with your boxing besties, and I love it. Like, I have like a little over 200 people now, and it's obviously not a lot of people when you really think about it, but that's really cool that now I have some people that actually love to read my stuff as opposed to just video, right? So I'm a really talented writer, so if you like reading, go ahead and check my newsletter out. Enough about that. Let's talk about Benavidez Morrell, and that whole card, because like I mentioned in my preview, I was really excited to cover that card just because it's a card that I knew that I was going to be in my seat since the prelims, and I was generally in my seat, and I was entertained the majority of the time. And I was also surprised by how many people there were for fight week events, right? There was a lot of people there, and there was also a lot of people there supporting Morrell. So it was really cool to see that whenever they include the fans will show up. Now for fight day, I'm a smaller creator, right? I'm not a big channel. So they usually sit us in the auxiliary media area, or would get like a lower bowl seat, right? And this time I was really excited because I actually got a lower bowl seat, and I love those because you get to be in the seats with the fans, and I love it because it gives us more of a chance to be more genuine with our reactions. I love witnessing other people's reactions of fans. I love absorbing the atmosphere because the atmosphere was amazing. Every fight lived up to the hype, especially the main event, David versus David. They really both fucking sat in the middle of the ring and traded. And they both, I think, kind of respect each other a little bit more as opponents, per se, after that, especially Morrell, who thought that it was going to be very easy, and even post-fight admitted to the fact that he did feel that he underestimated Benavidez in there, but feels that he would beat him in a rematch.
Sí, no creo que tengo que esperar 3 años. O sea, 3 años es como que, digamos, mucho tiempo. Pero sí, creo que tenía que trabajar un poco más a cuerpo. También se me indicó varias veces en la esquina, pero se me hizo un poco difícil en varias ocasiones trabajar al cuerpo. Estaba bastante pesado.
But let's break it down, because by now everybody's seen the clips, everybody's seen the recaps. So I just think that a lot of good things came for both of these guys, because for Benavidez, he was a guy who was like, you know what, I will take on the big risk, low reward type of fight, right? I will do that. I will take on this guy that no one really else is lining up to fight, and he keeps calling me out. So, okay, I'll do it, right? And he came out victorious. I know people talk about that knockdown. To me, ringside, it didn't look, well, not ringside, but the lower ball didn't look like a legit knockdown. It looked more that like he got, he's a tall guy, so it looked like he kind of got off balance and his gloves touched the canvas. But when they ruled it a real knockdown, I'm like, oh, it must be a real knockdown. I just didn't see it because from my angle, maybe I just didn't see the punch land. But now that we saw it, it wasn't like he was hurt anyway. So even if it was a flash knockdown, or if it would have been a legit knockdown, I don't think Benavidez is hurt. A lot of people talk about, how Benavidez's face looked at the end. And honestly, I know that it's usually, boxing casuals, because I think by now we all know that boxers, it's a fucking fight, especially with fights like this. Like, we want them to bang it out. And did we not forget that Benavidez literally had a cut like above his brow for the past couple fights that he mentioned that he opened in sparring before the Avozdik fight? Like, he cites it in a lot of interviews, and we've seen it. Like, so I know that if you got a guy in front of you who's at 175 who also punches hard as heck, like, that's what that's gonna do to him, right? And I think, like, I hate when people do that, when people put like the super overexposed, over sharpness, like, photos of, like, look how fucked up this guy was after the fight. He lost. Like, how the fuck did he win? Like, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, like, I'm gonna hold your hand while I say this, but that doesn't mean anything. Like, all fighters, depending on how heavy handed their opponent is, sometimes the gloves, right? Like, even I've seen fighters explain to me that even when they don't necessarily get hit, the fact that, when they're kind of, moving around and some punches graze them, it's still going to create, irritation, redness, all sorts of things, right? So I still don't get that whole, like, and again, even if he would have gotten knocked down, fighters get knocked down, and as long as they're not super wobbled and hurt and looks completely outclassed, then it's not that deep, right? So this whole thing, it's mostly coming from Canelo enthusiasts who were initially claiming that Benavidez was not going to fight Morrell because he was too dangerous, and things like that, right? Pushing that narrative, that are now saying this narrative of, like, well, he look at his face and he got exposed and he has pillow hands, right? Which, again, I don't think it's the case. I just think that this is another weight class. He was doing the things that he was doing to guys, both of them, right? At 168, because both of them are low-key taller than most guys at 168, and they carried more power. Now 175, they're both kind of going in there with guys who, guess what? They both also punch hard as fuck. So what now? Right? They have to show that they have other things in their arsenal, which both guys on Saturday night showed that they did. Very well so, in my opinion, right? Because I think fans that really appreciate the sport appreciate guys like Benavidez, who will give the fans, those fights, high risk, low reward, and will bang it out with the fans because he knows that he can. And he knows that, he's going to be entertaining because he believes in his own skills and everything that he learned sparring, everybody that we mentioned in the last issue of the newsletter. So, yeah, like, the other side, Morrell, he's trusting his Olympic pedigree. The fact that he's been in the ring with also guys from all over the world, and he's won most of those fights. So this guy who also could have just taken the Cuban way out and be like, hey, I'm Cuban, I'm going to show my footwork and kind of just box on the outside. He didn't. There's times where Benavidez also staggered him against the ropes, landed a beautiful uppercut, right? And post-fight, Benavidez talked about that uppercut, right? How it was a kind of a set, how the way that he set it up. And it was just beautiful to see him, the smile in his face when he's like, that shit was sweet.
I feel like I could attack every corner of the body, the head, the body. I know you guys seen that uppercut. Did you see how I set it up? I punched his left hand out the way, and then fucking put that uppercut in there. That shit was pretty sweet.
Both of them, I think, walked out proving that they belong where they're at. And no one really gives Morrell any crap for losing to someone like Benavidez. I think it's just more of like, well, your time will come type stuff. Go fight other guys who, are in the division who are also competitive, but that are not David Benavidez, right? So I think what's next for them, I would love to see Morrell against anybody competitive at 175, though I don't think people will be lining up to fight him anymore now that they did before, especially seeing, this performance against David Benavidez. Because even though, yes, he lost, and yes, he got staggered, and, he was getting hit to the body like crazy. Like, Benavidez looked very less RoboCop-y. I noticed at the beginning, too, since the beginning, his defense seemed better. So I was like, okay, I see you, right? And with Morrell, like, he really did stand in there and stuck to his word that he's like, I'm gonna try and make it look easy. And guess what? It wasn't. But I think, I don't know, Morrell, anybody. Benavidez, obviously, Turkey, Ellis Sheik already said that he's invited to watch Bertabia versus Pitbull 2. And the winner, right? He'll get the winner. I think, depending on whether it's competitive, they might want to push a trilogy, but I don't think that we want to see this fight. I think Turkey knows that. So I think we're very much set to see the winner of Benavidez versus Pitbull 2 against Benavidez, and that's going to be a war. Like, that's going to be so fucking good because regardless of who it is, we know the type of fighter that Benavidez is, and the reason why most appreciate him is because he will go in there and actually try to win the fight the monster way, right? He says it's la era del monstruo, it's monsters era, so far, I'm gonna take his word for it because he's came through in every single thing that he's told us. You know, I'm excited as hell for 175 Benavidez. What about Canelo? Right? That's what Canelo's just always going to be in the conversation. Like I talked to him in our interview. Like people are always gonna bring it up, and he said it post fight that again clearing it out that it's not him bringing up Canelo. The media wants this. The fans want this.
You guys keep asking me about that fight, and I know as much as you guys know. I mean, I would love to fight Canelo. It'd be a massive, massive fight, but Canelo says that he has other things, and he says I'm being too mean, and the way I'm approaching him. So
you don't want to face monsters.
I mean, I guess I got to work on my attitude.
And all of this just takes me back to the fact that Benavidez is literally the only one who took Canelo's I guess instructions or like just dismissive advice as like, okay, fine, right? Canelo back when it was 160, 168, when he was like jumping around from weight classes, 175 even, he was like, to the Charlos, to Jacobs, to Boo Boo, everybody who was waiting to fight him, even the ones at 175, right? He was like, hey, like, fight each other. While I decide, fight each other, right? Why don't you guys fight each other type shit? And back then people were like, yeah, you're right? And Benavidez was like, yeah, okay, fine. I'll fight everybody that you fought, right? Caleb Plant, or people that you didn't fight, like Boo Boo Andre, and I guess Morrell now. And I'll fight those. And he's doing it, and I think he made the right choice, right? Because Canelo, I think, is now announced that he is for sure doing Crawford, right? There's talks on social media that he's doing Jake Paul in May, or Reynoso said is going to be there in Billy, or that other mandatory that I could not give two rats asses about. But, I don't think that neither of them are going to need Canelo in order to cement their names as important, valuable fighters in this era, because those fights there are still to be made. Like Benavidez versus Pitbull or Benavidez can be a classic too, whether he wins or not. So, and I think the real fans who don't give a fuck about losses to begin with are going to appreciate that David's that type of fighter who doesn't care if he wins or loses. And regardless of whether he wins or loses, these are fights that are going to kind of make him a name, regardless of whether Canelo decides to fight him before he retires or not. Now, will there be a rematch? But Morrell was like, I want a rematch. I want a rematch. I know what to do. I know what I didn't do. I want a rematch, but I don't want to wait forever. But Benavidez was like, and his dad especially, they were like, why would we give him a rematch? Like, he barely won any rounds, according to them. He got battered for the majority fight, which I agree, kind of like it was so some rounds, especially the early rounds, were closer. But I do feel, and then some of the last ones, but I do feel like Benavidez was the one landing the better shots and the one pressing the action the majority of the time. So honestly, like, I think that they don't need a rematch unless it'll be later down the line, like way later down the line. But again, we want to see Benavidez versus Pitbull. And then they said something about maybe Zurdo if the organization's kind of, I mean, Benavidez has been waiting as a mandatory for the WBC forever, and they never pushed that. So at 175, he's mandatory. I'd be like, what the heck? That means nothing to me. And yeah, like post-fight during the press conference, you could tell that like Luis de Cubas was very much like salty and in his feelings about the loss, because Morrell didn't say anything other than like, I lost and I will see how I adjust and I know what to do. And his manager, on the other hand, was like, oh, the referee was on their side. He didn't call any low blows. David was landing so many low blows on Morrell, and the referee didn't call that.
The referee really wasn't on our side in that fight. I mean, people saw it, and he's worked with Benavidez' last 3 fights, I believe. So we try to, not want that referee. We could do it. We could get away with it, but we did not want him because he's worked for Benavidez' last fights, And, it was the referee, believe me, in the 11th round, when he took that point away from him, took the momentum away from him going into the 12th round, because he had him hurt. and he gave him more time to recoup and everything else after that, you know.
Was that the only thing that the referee did that was egregious?
Well, he was hitting Morrell with a lot of low blows. He never called no low blows either, you know. So that's what's going on.
Like, he was giving very much salty energy. And when Benavidez came out, you know, it was crazy because, like, he came out right as Morrell was answering something about along the lines of, you know, what he thinks he could do better or something like that. And here comes Benavidez, and he's just like, you know, shaking his hand or whatever. But immediately, as he's like shaking Morrell's hand, Luis de Cubas grabs his arm, and I can't hear what he's saying, but he says something like, you know, like, you better stop saying this, and I know people that can watch you, something along those lines, right? And mind you, we're in the media room, and there's like a lot going on. Meanwhile, Benavidez is talking, and Morrell's still answering the question while these guys are kind of having their little argument here. But it is something along the lines of like, I can get eyes on you pretty easy, basically, is what the sentiment was, right? And it was Jose Benavidez Sr., who was like, David, just leave him alone. Like, just leave him alone. Don't engage. And he did. David went to sit down, but the guy was still talking, right? So once they got up and they were like de-escalating and getting Morrell's team out, that's when Benavidez was like, tell your guy not to threaten me again, or else we're gonna have real problems. And the way that he said it, and the way that David's team was also yelling things like, viejito, aprenda a perder, viejito ridículo, and like things like that, right? I'm like, oh no, like this could get really, really ugly.
Para todos, nos está amenazando que vamos a matar, que va a mandar a toda la gente no sé qué, nos está amenazando.
Let's get one picture of Morrell and Benavidez. Fantastic. This is what boxing's all about right here. Two young guys putting the records on the line.
Hey, you better tell your guy. That's the last time you fucking threaten me, or else we're gonna have some fucking problems. Don't tell a motherfucker not to be threatening me no more, or else we're really gonna have some problems.
Enjoy your victory.
Now let's briefly talk, as briefly as possible, because I just be yapping. But you know, the undercard. I know we had Figueroa Fulton too as a co-main. I think I booed. All the drunk deals were not having it. Like, they were yelling all of the fucking ban chants from the FIFA. Like, they were yelling everything. And I don't think it was that bad. I think just following Pitbull, Cruz, Angel Fierro was with this, like, the Mexicans and the people that just the casuals, they were not gonna like that, right? And it's not like Fulton Figueroa was boring. They were still trading pretty frequently, in my opinion. It was a fight that was a lot of good, in my opinion, action. It wasn't obviously no freaking Pitbull versus Fierro, but it was a good freaking fight. And I think maybe people were just kind of turned off by the fact that Fulton was boxing beautifully. That freaking uppercut just looked beautiful. So I fucked with that heavy. And then even when he started fighting in the middle of the ring, you know, fighting on the inside, toe-to-toe with Figueroa, he was still getting the best out of him. So he really shut us the hell up in that sick-ass outfit. I know everybody was confused. Like, is he fighting in Timbs? Like, are those real Timbs? And, you know, I think I just included some of those on my newsletter. The tweets that people were tweeting is hilarious. But I fuck with Fulton so heavy. I always did. I just felt like because Figueroa had more time in the division to get settled in comfortably and had some big wins in the division, that it was just going to overwhelm the, you know, inactive and formerly inactive and not so great last performance Fulton, right? I think Fulton still needed maybe some time to get in the mix. But oh my God, did he shut us the hell up? And I love that. I love being wrong when I get proved wrong like this. And that outfit, Chef's Kiss, like, it's so creative. I'm choo-choo on that Fulton bandwagon, and I can't wait to see him in the division. That's because that's a really good division right now. And honestly, like, his style makes for some really great fights, regardless of the Theos not liking it, right? It's going to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more thought out, but I just feel like his style serves. That's such a good freaking division. Okay, let's move on, because I'm not going to shut the hell up about it. Pitbull, Cruz, Angel Fierro, Chef's Kiss. Like, honestly, this fight, when I saw that Pitbull wasn't knocking him out, I'm like, oh man, like, this kind of go long. It's kind of gonna go like the other performances that he's had that go the distance. No, Angel Fierro showed up and he also delivered on what he said he was going to do. Stand there and test Isaac Cruz's chin. And that he did, because of course he was taking most of the battering, but he landed some great shots on Cruz right in the third round. Literally, the Mexicans around me were barking, like barking in between rounds at Pitbull. And everybody was just clapping. I think when the finishing bell rang and both of the fighters kind of embraced, everybody was on their feet, and you can just tell in the arena that they're cheering at both fighters, that they're cheering at the fight itself as opposed to just a specific fighter that they were initially there for, Pitbull Cruz. So this was such a great fight. I think it also puts Angel Fierro, kind of his stock went up, right? Because I think most people still want to see him against other guys because he's kind of like a Pitbull, right? He's like Pitbull, same style. He's gonna sit there and stand and trade. And I just feel like if either of them had more pop behind their punches, they would have, put each other down. But they both had great chins and they both pop. So it was just an amazing fight. I know they said maybe a rematch, but I just feel like the division is such that Pitbull has so much competition that we'd rather see him against. Then they can each go their own ways. Like Fierro can keep going on these cards, right, with these guys and test them like a Pitbull would. And I would love to see that, have him build his own thing as opposed to maybe a rematch. It was great, but a bunch of punches as well as the main event, which also had like over 1,000 punches. I don't know how many punches this one had, but it was a lot. Like, estaban lloviendo putazos. And the card opener had Mono knocking out Banana. And what's crazy is that, like, I knew that he was probably going to hurt him to the body, but Ramos was really digging to the body, and I really appreciated that because, of course, we know that they're going to dig to the body when a guy has been knocked out like that, but I think he was having some really great punching placement, right? And again, Rosario didn't have the best performance against Swift either, in Pro Box, and he had been inactive for a bit, but I just think that Banana still, when he became champ, it was an upset, and he had like two really great, fights where they didn't think, a lot of people didn't think he was gonna win. So this still a guy who's been, a guy that upset you before, that can upset somebody. So I just feel like he deserves some real cool credit for beating Banana, and it was a nice start to the card, right? To just have him have a knockout. But I just don't know, like right now in the division, I don't know why he wants to go down to 154, because that's what he did say post-fight, that even though he, beat Banana like that, a former champ at 160, he beat him there. He wants to go back down to 154, and like that doesn't make sense to me because like 154 is crazy right now, like tied up. Crawford's there, right? Like Virgil, Madrimov, Boachuk, Conwell. Like there's a bunch of up-and-comers and fighters who are already been settled in there, and I feel like Ramos could have better fights at 160 with like, that division, Shiraz I know is fighting Bronco, right? So if he wins, or even if he loses, like that's someone that PBC can make there at 160. He could go with Lara at 160, right? Like I just feel like 154 will be harder to maybe get a big fight, or a fight that's gonna make him have a belt or something, as opposed to 160. That's kind of right now like low-key mid, but that's just my take on that. But that was my recap for the main card of the pay-per-view action. And if you want to read anything about the rest of the card, it's all going to be in my newsletter, the prelims, as well as the Benavidez team going 4-4-4 with Benavidez, Jose Benavidez Jr. actually fighting in the card too, before the prelims, which I don't get why they did that. Like it wasn't televised and there was no one in the arena other than the teams. But he got a win. He got a fifth round knockout. And you can also check out next week's schedule as well. And every issue of the newsletter every Monday will have, the boxing matches for that weekend or that week. So that's why you got to subscribe, right? Please subscribe. And let me know in the comments what you think. And follow me across all my social platforms. And if you see me in a fight, say hi. I love when people say hi to me. It makes me feel like, oh, cool. Like, hello. I love boxing too. Hello. So If you see me at a fight, say hi, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I am going to be covering Duarte versus Prograis, the 15th here at the Honda Center. So I'm going to try to go to RGBA and get some interviews, hopefully by the end of the week, with Duarte in Spanish, and then I'll translate them in English, and I'll, put them on the newsletter as well. But enough yapping. I've yapped long enough. Thank you for watching. And again, if you haven't subscribed, you already made it this far, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.